Yeah, we
I
are
feel like
indeed.
we've started the panel already. Should we kick off?
Yeah, should we? I think we'll get going. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
and anyone who's on touch up. So, hello all. Thank you and welcome to our very first Solar Social webinar. This is the first in a series that we're going to be creating. And as we are all in the same boat, we're all experiencing unprecedented times. There are obviously some tips and tricks and shared experiences that we're all going through. So I guess the purpose is just to uncover that a little bit more, explore that, and yeah, to create a community really where we can all benefit. We're all hopefully going to be sharing experiences this evening. Really want to encourage you guys to make use of the Q&A and chat functions as well, because we want this to be of the utmost benefit to you guys as well. Otherwise, there's not really much point in us doing it. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my wonderful panelist. We'll start off with Riana, just because she's the closest to my screen. Could you please tell me who you are, what you do, and one thing that you've a new skill or a hobby or something that you're doing new since the lockdown?
Okay, so my name is Riana. I have been in recruitment for 20 odd years. Spent the majority of that with agency in the UK, Europe, and the last 4 years in the US, predominantly New York. And then I made the decision actually in July last year that to be honest, my learning had stopped. Developing, though I like recruitment, talent, however you want to look at it, but I wasn't enjoying the agency side anymore. So I decided to go in-house. Did a brief contract just to make sure that is this definitely what I want. And then now I'm working at Hyperoctic, who are a fiber provider based in Hammersmith, as their talent acquisition manager, managing a team of 6. 4 are in Serbia, 2 are in London. We haven't slowed down, to be honest. It's mental, it's crazy. Interesting fact about me. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't have anything interesting. As I said, I'm not that interesting. But something that's happened to me in lockdown that I did not expect is I've gone absolutely mental on making sure I walk 7 to 8 kilometers a day, and I'm cycling more or less every single day. So I've gone super active, but I still will have a G&T or a Prosecco every day. But I don't feel too guilty about that, because it's whatever it takes to get through this right now. So
Awesome.
That's me.
Awesome, thank you so much. We'll swap over to Sammy.
Hi everyone. So I'm Sammy, Sammy Hepburn. I am currently the developer community manager at a company called Snyk, which is a software security company. Not necessarily in talent, but I've worked a lot of communities, helping people with their talent pipeline and things like that. Most recently founded and set up the Find a Tech Job community, which helps people sort of navigate the world of work in that way. And actually had the lovely opportunity to work with Dan on a few different things when I was contracting before this. And I suppose my fun fact is I've tried a lot of things during lockdown. I wouldn't say anything well. There's been a lot of cleaning. For some reason, I've now got this obsession. I even clean my windows on the weekend. And I'm on the first floor, so I literally hung out the window. But I bought a ukulele, and I am attempting to learn how to play that badly. So that is my fun fact. But yeah, I'm Sam.
Awesome, thank you. Alan, over to you, mate.
Hey, so I'm joining from Amsterdam. So I'm the head of people at Dott. So I was part of the initial founding team. We founded Dott about 18 months ago. The premise is to unlock a scooter or bike anywhere around Europe. You pay for the trip, and then at the end, you finish it on the application and leave the scooter or bike free floating. So before joining Dott, I was one of the recruiting leads at Uber for a few years. Joined in at the end of 2013, so that was quite exciting. Things that I've done new at home. So 2 things. One is Zwifting. So I bought a static bike and Zwift. So it's cycling in the garage basically. And the other is painting. So if you can see, my hands got paint all over them from it's a public holiday in the Netherlands today. So I've been painting my fence, as you can see in the background.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, Tyler.
Yeah, so my name is Tyler Bronson. I'm the talent acquisition specialist for TCS, which is covering IT operations, networks, and service management for TalkTalk. As you know, TalkTalk are one of the top 5 broadband and TV suppliers in the UK. So it's really awesome to work for a business like that. So yeah, an interesting fact about me is over the past 6 months, I've been learning 5 languages all at once, which is insanely difficult, but I've got some really good sort of mentors behind me to actually learn these 5 languages, which is going to be awesome. So once I become sort of conversational, and then I'll do my exams, and then hopefully become fluent in 5 other languages. So that's interesting.
Yeah. All right, well, Tyler wins that round. 1-0 you, mate. Flip. Okay, cool. Yeah, fair play. I don't feel like I've used my time productively at all. I've just been out for a few runs, really, done a few press ups. That's about it. So not that impressive at all. I think, yeah, just to start, really, I think we'll be covering a couple of different areas here, and I want this to flow pretty naturally. So one of the questions I wanted to start with is on a sort of personal level, and how we're structuring our own time, and wanted to just hand that over to Alan about how he handles the separation between home and work in this environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question, firstly, because I think about it in kind of twofold. So, you know, I think generally there's no real, as we're all forced working from home, it just happens so suddenly, there's no kind of contingency planning, right? Both at individual level and at company level. So, you know, Monday, you know, is exactly the same day as a Sunday, right? Daytime is the same as nighttime. And it's very difficult to especially with I've got a young family. So being able to say to my little daughter, who, you know, is 18 months old, doesn't quite speak yet, like, Daddy's at work, you need to kind of, you know, let me do this meeting, right? And occasionally she just kind of comes and joins the meeting. So, you know, you just have to be kind of tolerant. So I think that the main things are really just to try and, you know, have a routine. I know everyone says it, but it's like, do the basics and do them really well. So having a routine in the morning, knowing when you know you have to take breaks. You've also then got to not just educate, but just talk openly with the different companies. And this is what we've been trying to do in my role of kind of head of people at Dott, is to allow all of the people to actually empathize and understand. We've done a couple of sessions on kind of mindfulness. It's a really interesting technique that we've started to embrace, and it all centers, you know, around firstly getting comfortable with what your, you know, state of mind is, right? If you're in a fear zone, if you're in, you know, a growth zone, right? We've spoken about like learning new languages and things like that. It's very much in the kind of the growth stage. Well, for me, I haven't always been at the growth stage, right? And I've been in the kind of the fear zone of, I'm stressed, I've got a, you know, child who's, you know, doesn't realize I'm at work, you know, the increased fears of, you know, being in lockdown, and, you know, the added stress of not being able to kind of get out as much as I want to. So it's all, yeah, it's pretty tough being in lockdown, but you might also not empathize other work colleagues who are in a completely different situation. They might be single, it might just be super easy, or they might have kind of 3 kids and having to do homeschooling. So making sure that, like, as an organization, the people there are, you know, are empathetic. I think that's the key thing that trying to get across, just empathetic to not just, here's a deadline, right? Can you kind of deliver against it? Whatever was normal expectations are now just kind of out the window, and you have to really just empathize, check in with colleagues, and just make sure that you know, what you feel is a reality, is the same reality that they can have in order to be productive.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, does open it up to you three if you've got anything else to add on that point.
Yeah, I agree with what Alan's saying. I think the empathy side, the emotional intelligence bit, plays a big part. You know, that whole thing, everyone's having good days, you're having bad days, and everybody's going through that. I've done it with a few of my guys. You know when someone's having a bad day. And I have said, listen, why don't you log off? If you can get out for a walk, go for a walk, watch a film, do something else. Because I can't say to them, go to your pub, because it's shut. Or do exercise. You know, quite a lot of my guys are into their fitness. Is do whatever is going to get you more balanced and make you a bit happier that day. I think from that side, the whole thing that we've been doing really well is, you have your daily catch-ups as a team, and then you do it individually. But my individual chats are more based around, hey, how you doing? The more welfare checks, rather than what's happening with this job, that manager, what's going on here. It's more around that stuff, the more the social side. And I think that's become a lot more important.
Yeah,
I think one thing to also recognize is that, like, if anyone is listening and is maybe single and, you know, like, don't necessarily have like the pressures of looking after a family and things like that, and is still feeling down, like, that's okay too. And that you're allowed to mention it. And if there's any like managers listening on the call, is like, it's one thing to be able to open up and say, I'm having a bad day today, but if I don't see my manager saying that, I feel like crap, like people are losing their jobs. Like, if I say that I'm not coping with this, like, is that going to be okay? So if you are leading a team, to show vulnerability back helps people to be empathetic to their colleagues and other people in the organization. But if we don't see it from the top down, we're not going to feel comfortable saying that we're not doing okay today. You know, yesterday I had the worst day. Like, I couldn't be productive. I couldn't focus. It was just one of those days. And, you know, I was on a call with my boss and I was like, this is happening today. Like, I will be fine tomorrow, but just know that today it's just like, I don't know what it is, but it's not happening. And so sort of showcasing that as well is really important.
I think that also relies on people saying that they're okay, right, or not okay. And not everyone is going to be as comfortable in saying that as well. So, you know, it's trying to, as a company, not trying to reinvent the office environment, because if you try and recreate the office environment, you're just going to fail. You know, you have to be creative, you have to adapt, you know, you have to just have those open, transparent conversations, either at kind of team level, and just, you know, reinforce the message that, you know, it's okay, you know, to feel any type of emotions, or just trying to kind of embrace embrace it and deal with it, not fighting against it.
Yeah, I think all you guys have pretty much hit the nail on the head. But I think when it comes to, you know, different businesses and how they should react to the whole sort of pandemic and working from home, is one of the most awesome things that TalkTalk have done is that we measure on output, not the time that you've logged on. Like, we don't care, like, if you're logged on at 3 o'clock in the morning, as long as you're doing your work. In theory, fit work around your life, not the other way around. And I think it is ultimately that, because we do have this flexible working, we have laptops, phones, and everything. You know, somewhere, some software devs may be night owls. They may be coding at 2 o'clock in the morning. They may feel comfortable doing that rather than 9 or 5. So giving them that opportunity to have fully flexible working. And when we say flexible working, we actually mean it. You know, you can work whenever you want. And I think it's measured on output, not time being logged on. But just a tip of the trade, really, for me, when it comes to sort of scheduling your days. I know it sounds really sad, and it's going to sound very hilarious to you all, but I do my commute on a morning. So I walk to the tram. I don't get on the tram, but then I walk back, and that kind of like kickstarts my day. Obviously, I wake up feeling groggy and all the rest of it, but it kind of kickstarts my day, because I think I'm now in work mode. Whereas if I just woke up, my pajamas still on, laptop straight on there, I'll just watch, I'll watch a YouTube video first to kick off the day. So that's like my tip of the trade, really. Is like, do your commute.
I think just to add one point onto it, it's just about the being productive and deliver, right? And I think the key message that I wanted to get across was, it's okay not to be as productive, right? We've got software engineers who are super competitive, and, you know, iOS, Android team always kind of competes with one another. And, you know, a couple of the leads on the team, they're, you know, they've got like 2 kids at home, they're very young. It's, you know, so having that culture of it's okay, not to be as productive, and recognizing that and actually being quite vocal about it, right? Which then drives empathy across different teams, because, you know, otherwise you're not reinforcing that empathy kind of belief.
Absolutely.
Amazing. There's been a couple of questions that have come through. I'll answer one of them first. I'll ask one of them first, and because I think we're going to hop over to Alex Wilshire's later. But for an internal talent function, if the main priority right now is not hiring and interviewing, what are the other main objectives that you guys are looking to achieve during this period?
I'll probably chip in first and say keeping people connected, because this is a very daunting time for mental health to really kick in, because we don't have that open sort of stature where we can just, you know, grab a tea and grab a coffee and just sort of rant and vent. We don't have that anymore, because it's not really the same ranting and venting over Teams or over Skype or whatever. So it's keeping people connected. So a good thing that we're doing is, you know, just doing like weekly quizzes. Now, again, it goes from the call that we had a couple of weeks ago. Like, some people might not be a quiz person, and that's okay. But there are things that we can do for you. So whether that's book nights, you know, book clubs, or gaming nights, quiz nights, with Mr. Motivator do a workout scheme with us. You know, there's so many different things that we're doing, and it's all about keeping people connected. Because as soon as you stop doing that, as soon as you start to not care about it, you will lose people. I guarantee it. You will lose people if you don't keep them connected.
With the connectivity thing, what we did was we reached out to the wider team and found out what their hobbies were. Like, we found out that one of the girls in our HR team is a qualified yoga professional, another guy is like really into his CrossFit, and so some of those wellness sessions are now being run by the team. Obviously people that are comfortable doing it, but you also start to see their characteristics and like that social bit of like, hey, do you want to go to the pub after work or go to this gym class, and now being done by the team. Which has been really, really nice, because I've got to know people in our other offices that I wouldn't have necessarily interacted with, but found out through them doing a virtual yoga session or a virtual this session.
Awesome. So there's obviously a lot of, sorry, Riana, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, from Hyperoctic's perspective, so we are still hiring business critical roles. So there's been a whole thing that's happened in the background regarding what classifies as business critical and what doesn't. That's in the UK and in Serbia. But what we are having the opportunity to do is kick off a lot of projects. So maybe when stuff that you can't do when it's hectic and business as usual. We've seen a hell of a lot of really, really good cross-teams, cross-country project kickoffs. So there is a hell of a lot of excellent collaboration going on. More or less every single project is not necessarily just your teams. People aren't necessarily working in silos like they were before. So that's been fantastic. And we're, like Tyler and Sammy said, with regards to quizzes, doing that. We make sure that we have twice weekly catch-ups with the entire team. There's about 70 odd people in what we term as a people team across both countries, where you catch up regarding this is what's going on in business offices, COVID updates. People do want to know what's going on, not hiding any business conversations that are going on, because as Alan said, that people are maybe concerned about their jobs, concerned about the company. So having given them really regular updates, if anything, I think the company has started over communicating, just to make sure that people are okay and they're fine. And then managers doing your welfare checks with your team. Even my director actually does it with me. And I've had colleagues from the senior level HR. A couple of them will check in on a really regular basis, just ring for a chat.
Yeah, amazing.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah, amazing.
And I'm still new to the company, so that Alex Wilshire's question, I can definitely answer that.
Yeah, please do.
And I'm very new to the organisation. They've been amazing.
Yeah, and so just I mean, quite a natural progression then on from that. Then, if you wanted to sort of touch on what Alex has asked.
Yeah, I mean, from Alex's perspective, so I joined Hyperoctic on the 16th of March, and we went into lockdown on the 18th of March. So I only had two days in the office. So from my side, when so new starters, the whole induction process is the whole induction, everything was written down. I was pretty much given online a whole booklet, if you want to put it that way, regarding this is the company, this is the plan for induction right from week 1 to week 12. So they've covered the whole potential lockdown. And these are the people that you need to contact. By the way, they all know you're here, they all know you've started, because my director had already sent an email out to everybody who I was, with a picture and a bio of this is who I am, this is what I'm going to be doing. Those people were expecting me to contact them when I was ready, not when they were ready. So it was like, we'll work around you, it won't be the other way around. So that whole induction, if right now, if you're, because we've had a lot of starters like myself who started in lockdown, making sure equipment's ready. We're actually delivering equipment via FedEx to people, obviously social distancing and everything else. Making sure login instructions are written down, given, laminated. These induction booklets are sent on paper and on via email to them. They know exactly who to contact. Hey, this is who you contact the help desk, this is who you contact in HR, this is, you know, who you contact if you're having issues with X, Y, and Z. It's been super organized. If anything, having new starters in lockdown, you've got to be organized, you've got to be structured, and it's a week by week plan. So I know who I've got to speak to, what my objectives are, who I'm reporting back to, any particular projects that are kicking off where they're going to need my involvement. Here, you know, read this. We have a whole thing on the internet which we call Hyperlearn. So there's so much online learning that you can do, and I've been directed to certain here. It's important, you know, this is how the system works, this is how you do this is how you do that. And if you don't understand, this person is ready and waiting to help you and take your call. So like that, honestly, things like this become even more important. And that making sure that that you always know who to contact. That's really important, that people are really super accessible to you, even though everyone's hectic. But also what we are finding in lockdown is, because it's constant video calls, you're having so much screen time with people, but it's been really respectful of people's times. That if you are, say you've got 15 minutes or half an hour, an hour with somebody, that people are setting agendas to make sure that you get everything what you need out of that hour, because you're new in the company. There's agendas that are set, people will call on time, it finishes on time, so there's no lag for you then getting on to the next person. And also people have been really, really respectful of that. Unless I put something in the diary for after 5:30, they won't do it, or before 9 o'clock, they will not do it. If I choose to do it, that's my decision, but they won't touch my calendar or diary. And I've absolutely loved that.
I think
so things like that have been really good.
On the culture side of it, of Alex's question, what we're finding is one, obviously, when we recruit and we hire, whether it's virtually or not, we are sort of making sure that the person fits into our company culture and things like that. So hopefully and that culture to us is a bit different. It's not just about like, your carbon copy of, you know, the same people we've already got. But then we've added extra things. We've got the onboarding and the sort of day catch-ups and things. But the same way you'd all go to, maybe like the pub for a drink on someone's first day. We've now done onboarding. So we only onboard people every 2 weeks. To almost onboard them in batches, so we can, one, it's a bit easier from like a poster. You can't just sort of turn around and hire someone to start tomorrow anymore, because we've got to post equipment and things. But then we have like a Zoom call, which is after hours, but it's almost like a drink and sync. So we like welcome the new starters, everyone will jump on, we'll just have a casual chat, and then we use Slack as a form of communication. So we also let them know about we have like a Slack channel for everything. So like if you like dogs, cats, eggs, baking, knitting, there's a subcategories of sourdough and this type of cooking, and we also let our new starters know about that as well, so that they can kind of find their spot. Like our culture isn't about all looking the same, so making sure that like if they're into running, they know that there's a Slack channel they can join it and just discuss that and get to know the people, and they have calls and catch ups and do what they do. If you're into baking, the same thing. We have a wine club, we have a gin club. And so there's other ways in which we can showcase sort of culture and that togetherness without physically being in the room.
Yeah.
I think it quite stems on to what we had a conversation about the other day, about the sort of the quiz when you do start. So what we're sort of working on is that you do a quiz, and it's kind of like a personality sort of test. What do you like, what you don't like, what's your favorite bands, musicians, sports teams, who do you hate sports teams wise, and all the rest of it. And then we actually take that and match you with kind of like a weird Tinder, if that makes sense. But we actually match you with someone who might not be in your team, that you'll probably never even meet, but you might like the same band. And who knows, you might, once lockdown is over, you might go to a gig, you might go for a pint with them or whatever. And it's all about building that friendship outside of the team as well. Because I think if you're onboarding people, then you are going to be probably stuck in your own team. You won't ever you won't ever bump into anyone like, oh, what do you do? You won't ever have that sort of natural occurrence where you bump into someone making a tea or something and be like, oh, you're a finance business partner. What does that mean? Or you're a software dev. What does that mean? And you won't ever have that interaction. So not necessarily forcing, but having the enthusiasm to actually force that interaction to happen with different people outside of your team, it made me feel way more comfortable, because I've met someone who listens to the same sort of rock bands that I'm into, and before lockdown went to gigs together. That's awesome. Like, I probably would have never even bumped into them if it wasn't for that.
Funny, we've actually recreated the coffee bump in, so at 10 a.m. and at I think it's 3 or 4 p.m. So because we've got colleagues all over the world, it's just a Zoom that is created that anyone can jump into and have a coffee and a chat type thing. And so we're sort
have you recently implemented that, did you say?
So we've always had, so we have quite a few work from homers already. And so we had a Friday sort of call for them. Well, anyone could jump in, but it was kind of related to that. So we've just sort of maximized that now during lockdown, that it's twice a day, every day. And I try to jump in as often as I can. And it's almost guaranteed there's like one or two of like people like me that jump in all the time. And then depending on the day, between 2 to 10, 20, 30 other people that I wouldn't have necessarily interacted with, or they're new and I haven't like managed to see them. And like the conversation, we just have one rule: you're not allowed to talk about Corona, just because we found in the first few weeks everyone was just talking about like, oh, this is hard, this is tough, and it is, but then people just didn't want to come because there's just so much about that already in the news, and you're already a bit down. And so we kind of have this loose rule, so then it's kind of fun because you kind of call people out on it. You're like, hey, you said the C word. And we talk about other things like our baking fetishes, and everyone's cutting their hair these days, so we can update on someone's new haircut on each call, which is fun.
Or baking. The whole thing about baking just honestly, it makes a difference that you see, just seeing people in a different light, like normal human things that they're doing every day.
Yeah.
Our work from homers are quite funny. They're like, they haven't had so much social interaction until Corona. It's almost like a positive for them, because usually like less people are on the other calls. So it's also that empathy that Alan said. Now we have way more empathy for them going out of Corona.
Yeah, we did something on Friday, the guest people's workstations, where we sent pictures of what their workstations look like.
We did that with fridges. It was so much fun.
On Thursday. It was really funny.
We did that with fridges. Everyone sent a photo of like an open fridge, and then you had to try guess whose fridge it was.
Just good, funny stuff.
Mine's just Bud Light and microwavable meals at the minute.
Just wanted to jump on to the Q&A quickly. Lionel was asked a couple of pretty poignant questions. So he's personally advocates mindful leadership. And I was just wondering whether you guys had any hacks or tips that you've perhaps been exploring or experimenting with your teams.
I think as if it's a question from a leader and wanting to be a mindful leader, I'll take it as that. It might need some clarification from it, but being a mindful leader, I think, is just having that open channel of conversation, and more so now than ever, because it's so important to keep people in the loop. So if I could say that, probably my best advice really that I coach my hiring managers is, especially with new starters and even sort of people that have been there for a couple of years, is have sort of an automated reminder to actually remind you, don't talk about BAU, don't talk about work, just have a coffee with them and get to know them. Because we have that, like, at the first week, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 24 weeks, we have that sort of in their diary prepped, and it's not really a sort of one-to-one in regards to the business stuff. It's mainly just look, let's just grab a coffee. I want to find out more about you. What do you do in your spare time? Let's just have a coffee and catch up. And I think if you have that open channel, then people are going to be more inclined to come back to you and say, look, I'm having a really bad time because of X, Y, and Z, or I feel overloaded with work because of X, Y, and Z. Having an open channel and displaying that is probably the best way around it, I'd say.
I also think getting to know your team in that way will allow you to pick up key things of how they like to be managed. So just in the normal conversations and the way they talk about, say, their family or this, you'll understand whether they are a person that will naturally come to you if they have problems, because they're talking about this at the next thing. If you notice they're a bit more quiet, like mindfulness management is also about leading the person individually. The way someone leads me should be different to the way someone leads my colleagues, and I should lead my team in a way. And so you can get, like, a lot of people are like, yeah, but I really want to get to know my team, but I don't necessarily have the time. I know that sounds terrible, but I'm sure people are thinking it, and it's okay. But know that you can get a lot from understanding your team members. That isn't just like the nice bits of getting to know them, but also understand how their brain works, because then you'll be able to flag those like key things that Ellen said, that everyone's going to come to you and tell them when they have a problem, or they might just be happy to be left alone and they'll come to you once every 5 days with a completed task. And that's the way they like it. We have other colleagues who almost need to chat every 2-3 hours because they're a bit more task-based, and you'll get to know their personality types, getting to know them as human beings.
I think possibly even doing a personality test yourself is actually pretty good. Now, I don't know which one it is, but it's the one with the colours, the red, blue, yellow, and green.
Yeah, I've done that.
I don't know what the name of it is, but I had it, and that really opened my eyes to how I interact with different people. Now, as you probably guessed, with mine, I'm probably sort of red-yellow, which is a very direct, but also quite jazz hands if need be. So that's my personality. But if you know the personality types, you're going to pick up on certain things, whether that's unconsciously or consciously. So if you're speaking to a person and they're displaying very blue traits, you know how to have a conversation with a blue person, because they're going to be quite analytical. They're going to be very sort of data-minded, whereas a red person is giving the information and go away, shall I say. And lead me to it. And I think doing that even yourself, you'll actually find out a lot more about yourself and yourself as a leader, and that will open up a whole tin of worms really for the rest of your team in regards to personalities.
Do you want to tell you, we've done something quite recently. We're bringing in something called Predictive Index. It's quite similar to Savills and Thomson International.
Yeah.
And the whole talent team did theirs a couple of weeks ago, and we had feedback sessions. And we had a massive feedback session together. And that whole learning, communicating, where you are, A, B, C, D, E, where you are with all of it. And everybody had a look at each other's, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I think stuff like that is probably more important now than it's ever been.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
As you said, some people want to be contacted every couple of hours. Other people just leave me alone. I'll come back to you when it's done. It's understanding where
goes back to what Ellen said about empathy as well, because then you understand that person's just direct, they're not being mean, or that person is needs the hello, how are yous and the 5-minute conversation before they get to the point, and they're not just trying to drag it out and be wishy-washy. Like the more you understand.
It's been really good. Really eye-opening.
We've spent a lot of time on this, and there's like, if I can try and simplify for the benefit of the group, I think like one of the key things is being engaging, right? So when you go to a video call, turn on your video, right? You can see the other person, and then you can naturally have affinity, because otherwise it feels like you're just talking to a kind of a blank room, right? Don't try and create the office environment, right? It's never going to be a copycat for the digital world. Number two is like connecting, right? So making sure that you're connected to your different team members, and also connect with people via Slack or with a random WhatsApp or phone call, etc. Make sure that you're kind of connecting with others. Third is adapting, right? Making sure that you adapt to your new reality. Understanding that there will be a productivity dip, right? And I'm really embracing it, and as an organization, showing you're embracing it. And then 4 is like being caring and being human, right? So you need to allow teams to collaborate remotely. One of the things that was quite eye-opening to a lot of people was that it's really difficult if you've got kids and you're trying to schedule some time with, I don't know, the finance team or with, you know, one of the recruiters or whoever it is, and you're scheduling time between like 11:30 and kind of 2:30. You never know if they're going to be, you know, in the middle of just trying to put their baby to sleep, or it's lunchtime, right? So schedules don't always work. You just have to be flexible, and you just have to ask questions and empathize. I think that was one of the key things that I didn't necessarily think, you know, would be a problem for me. And then as soon as I got home between 11:30 and 2:30, it's just kind of, you know, it's just kind of out the window. I can't structure it every single day.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I agree.
There's a couple more. This one's directed specifically at Alan. He's asked, what are your 3 top hacks for working from home? And that could be us to open that up. If you can give your 3 top tips for productivity or just generally working from home.
I think as Tyler said, right, is having a routine. I think that's kind of number one. I think that, you know, the first couple of weeks, the day would just go until it's kind of 6-7 o'clock, and you know, where did the day go, right? So having a routine is one. Number 2, give yourself a break. So one of the key things I wanted to get across here is is take a holiday, right? Now, a lot of people are not taking holiday. We definitely see it at Dott, where they, you know, bearing in mind we went into lockdown in like March, so not many people took any of their holiday, and then they're not taking any holiday during lockdown, and then as soon as we come out of lockdown, we're not easily able to kind of fly to Spain or Greece or wherever. So it's going to be 9 months of lag and holiday. So please take holiday. Encourage your teams to take holiday. It has a positive impact for both the individual, increased stress in this period of time, you know, relationships are strained, work life strained, etc. Take a holiday, you know, and just kind of detach from work, right? And it also has a positive impact for the company as well, because if you haven't taken holiday, then, you know, in September time, you know, the Ibiza closing parties are going to be kind of crazy, right? But everyone's just going to be off for like a month. So really try and take time and progressively stage it through the year, because it's just not going to be possible to kind of roll over the holidays to next year and thinking you're just going to kind of have it, right? As soon as you come out of lockdown, it's not as if we're just going to be able to get on a flight and go somewhere. Yeah. We're going to be in it for a long time. Take holiday, rest, recuperate, and detach from work.
Yeah, and just a testament just to that last point, mate. A colleague of mine has just sort of come back from a number of days off, and he sort of raving about it and said it really made a massive difference. So I think it obviously does work, and we are sort of a lot more stressed than usual. So yeah, just do yourself a favour.
We're actually next week, I think it's next week, Friday the 15th is International Wellness Day, and we're actually closing every single office and forcing everyone to take the day off. And to take it for themselves, and, you know, like if binge watching Netflix their thing, great. If it's running or walking, but we're actually giving everyone a wellness day for that day, and actually closing every office internationally.
I think it's probably good to add as well that a lot of people will, especially being on lockdown and working from home and everything, when we say take holidays, actually do take them. Turn the bloody laptop off. Turn your phone off. You know, don't think about, you know, the work can wait, pretty much. You're on holiday, for God's sake, you know, wait for it. And I think a lot of people, I'm prone for it. When I was on holiday, you know, early last year, I would check my emails on holiday, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I am on holiday. And I think people get into this very absorptive mindset where if they don't check things, they feel out of loop. But that's totally fine. You know, that's the reason why you take a holiday. Turn off, switch off, do what you need to do. Like what Sammy said, if you want to binge Netflix and eat loads of chocolate, absolutely, I'm that person. If you want to go running, then absolutely not me, but definitely do it if need be. You know, find your holiday and just do it. You know, just switch off and do it.
Yeah, and the one hack I'd like to add to Alan's hacks is try separate your space. Like, I know, especially if you're in London, like you probably, like I'm in a flat share with other people, and so trying to not sleep, live, work, everything in my bedroom is a little bit tricky. And so what we've actually done in the house is I work in the living room. My flatmate actually works in my room at this desk. And so we've all got like a workspace and then a relax space. And it allows you just to break away from not always being in the same room, looking at the same thing. So my commute is into the lounge, her commute is into my room. And so also just have some space that you feel like when I'm sitting at that chair or at that table or, you know, wherever it is, that's where I'm working. And when I'm not, this is my like relaxed space. Otherwise you will end up working whatever hours and stuff because you're just constantly in the same spot.
One other thing as well, I've just remembered I do as an individual is just taking a walking meeting. So putting my AirPods on and just going for a walk for 20 minutes, scheduling time. And if I know it's going to, you know, not need my laptop or, you know, share anything, then just take a walking meeting.
One-on-ones are great for that. I do all my one-on-ones walking.
Yeah. Do you know what? From my perspective, and pretty much what everybody else has said about having a routine. So, do you know what? Have a routine. I'm sorry. Get up, get showered, get yourself ready, wear normal clothes. And like Tyler was saying, like his commute to the tram station. It is try to have some type of normality. That I also will, and I appreciate what Alan just said about walking meetings. Do you know what I will do? I go for my walk for an hour slap bang in the middle of my day, which would be my lunch break. I will not take my phone with me because I just want to have a break because everything is so intense right now. And I encourage my team to make sure that they log off on time. So they're not tempted to carry on working ridiculous hours, which everybody actually was doing at the beginning, is whatever their interests, their hobbies are, their family, personal situation, that they actually have a life like they would if they were in the office, just to encourage them and make sure they do that. So if any of them are online now and send me an email or on Teams, my first response is, why are you online? It is, guys, switch off. You've got to do what you do. And then like Tyler said about holidays, we're encouraging people to take holidays, but also take them and be logged off. Do not reply back to anything because things are intense. They're extra stressful right now. Any respite you can get, people got to take, and we've got to encourage them to do it.
I think the one thing to note there though is people, if we're saying we'll be flexible and, you know, if you've got to work a bit, if you want to take some time during the day and work a bit later, that's fine, is to not make them feel bad for that as well. So like if it's like getting to know your team, right? So you know that if they're messaging you at 6 p.m, they're just kind of putting it there for you to respond when it's your turn to do some work. But they've chosen to kind of maybe do a bit later and maybe get up a bit later in the morning and stuff like that. So it's definitely an empathetic, like get to know your team.
Absolutely. And we've had it with one of our senior HRBPs who she starts emailing people at 7:15 in the morning, and it's got to the stage where we're like, stop doing it, because you are actually stressing someone else out because they're logging in and they've got 15 emails from you. It is just think, people, that can this wait until 9 o'clock so you don't stress out whoever needs to come back to you, because it's had a knock-on effect on other people. Just be aware about your audience.
Amazing. Just another question that's come through is how to engage teams remotely, not directly. Then I thought also how else are we engaging our community and wider audience as well as that during the lockdown? So there's a couple of questions there. I guess you guys can touch to. What's that one? Yeah, well, I was sort of putting that in there just to lead on nicely for you, Sammy. You just exposed it now. So.
With the Teams one, because half of our company are in Belgrade, so the whole remote working, being online, that's not really been an issue. What has been more of an issue is the fact that they're at home, their curfew's been really strict, they can't get out, the whole frustration element has kicked in. What I have got everybody, yes, there is some element of BAU that's happening every single day, every single week, but they're all doing projects that they have an interest in that are obviously beneficial to the team, to the company. So they're doing other stuff that maybe they wanted to do that they never had time to do before. And that whole ownership, sharing responsibility, having input when they want to have that input. actually, you know what, that's actually worked really well. Every single one of them is doing a project, or they're part of a project.
Wow.
Some of them I've actually asked to do certain projects, and I'm like, absolutely fantastic. And if it's not a project that's going on in my team, we have said, X man, this other team is doing it, and said, look, can this person join? And that whole thing about cross teams, not working in silos anymore, that's worked fantastically, like keeping people motivated. And that whole thing that, you know, they're talking or meeting people online that they would normally never ever speak to. So we've got one girl who's doing endless projects, not just for the talent team, but for other people within the company. She's absolutely loving it. And it's just have freedom of your work, freedom of what your diary looks like. Yes, there's an element of core things, you know, that they need to do, and some elements of it's BAU, but give people the freedom to make decisions regarding projects and work that they do and when they do it. That's I actually think, as from Hyperoctic, has actually been a really, really good side effect.
Yeah, I think to probably stem onto that from the project sort of side of things, a lot of what TalkTalk is doing is we allow a bit of spare time for you to develop and actually learn new things. So a bit of space of time in the diary to actually just go, well, I'm a software dev, but I want to find out what finance BPs do on a day-to-day basis. And it's just influencing that conversation between the two parties. But then also, LinkedIn Learning is a big tool, you know, how to speak, how to master public speaking, how to become the best sort of Python dev. It could be anything. And it's allowing that space to actually have personal development, you know, when it comes to career side anyways. But then also, there's a lot of LinkedIn Learning for like soft skills as well, whether that's public speaking, writing, Excel work, or anything like that. You can learn anything. And I think if you separate time in your team's diaries for them to allow to just do whatever they please on work hours, giving them that bit of time to actually develop and learn whatever they want to do, it speaks values. Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree.
And I mean, just before I let you go off, Sammy, and share your amazing work, I did want to just touch on the whole side of furlough and layoffs and redundancies. And I'm not sure whether you guys have been affected by that or have had to sort of manage that process. But how are you engaging them? I mean, how has that looked for you guys?
I mean, we have in certain parts of our business, not that many, but we have done. These are people that either high risk or live with high risk. Interestingly, this actually happened last week. So what we are doing with people that have been furloughed is getting them into training. So when their managers are running training sessions, is inviting them to those training sessions, but not forcing them. It's their decision whether they come or not. Or if there's been any cross training that's available that they can attend, they've been sent invites, so they have that choice about whether they want to attend or not. And that for some has actually worked really well. Some have actually really quite enjoyed it.
That's awesome. I'm totally gonna pinch that idea, by the way.
Yeah, honestly, please do. Yeah, the whole training element of it has been brilliant. And then it's not necessarily just technical training, the softer skills as well. So as you're saying, the whole presentations, public speaking, you know, training regarding if, you know, they want to get promoted to the next level, what's the criteria. They've been doing that. If they want to, that's their decision.
Yeah, I think.
But we invite.
Yeah, I think probably needle in the stack for me is that we haven't furloughed anyone. We haven't made anyone redundant. So I would not be able to comment on it at all because I don't know. I don't know how you'd react in it because I haven't had to deal with it. Because I think
because we've done it across 6 countries. So what's really interesting with this, and I've had to shut down so before we started Dott, we had to shut down a OFO business. So OFO was a Chinese bike sharing business, raised billions of funding, and we had to shut down all of Europe. So I've gone through mass shutdown previously, and this one was a really interesting one because it was so fast. Our business was in growth mode and going super fast. And then all of a sudden, within the space of 2 weeks, we lost 90% of our revenue, right? So it's a huge dramatic cliff that you fall off. So, you know, and there was this analogy which was really interesting, was that don't try and catch a falling knife, right? So when you're falling, don't make decisions, don't try and catch it, let the knife hit the floor, you can pick it up safely. But you need to know where it bottoms out before you make any decisions. So that was a really interesting analogy. The other is that what you thought the reality was in 2 days' time is just completely different. It's just a, you know, mass seismic shift. So if anyone goes through this again and has to make kind of decisions, like, just remember that, because that was really really eye-opening to me. In Europe, Europe has been quite a great market actually for various types of furlough schemes. So, in the UK, furlough means that you go off work, but your job is secure, right? In the Netherlands, it's not a similar scheme. In France, it's something in the middle. Germany, it's a Kurzarbeit, something a little bit different. So we've had to take subsidies across different parts of Europe, from France, Germany, Belgium, the UK, Netherlands, you know, Poland, etc. So so we had to make those decisions, and we really tried as a business not to lay off any staff, and thankfully we haven't laid off any staff, right? Now, we were only able to do that because we feel very strongly that our business, which, bearing in mind, we're shared scooters and bikes, right? So it's very difficult, for instance, in London, if, you know, you're trying to practice social distancing by being on the tube, right? It's impossible. So there will be an emergence of shared bikes, shared scooters, etc., to be able to facilitate kind of some of those social distance commutes. So we felt quite strongly with the rebound. So then we knew, okay, fine, well, we need to retain all of our staff. And how we did that was clear, open communication, not panicking, right? And being fully transparent, opening up your book, having a company all hands, explaining the business rationale. Employees aren't stupid, like, they get it, right? So you have to, you know, don't withhold critical information, put it all out there. These times create your company culture, as opposed to the fear of losing your job, because then that brings it's us against the world mentality, and you will rise, you always find that additional 10% to really start rallying. So the first part was about not catching the falling knife, right? When the knife then hit, it's like, okay, fine, what is our contingency planning, and how do we prepare for the comeback? So all of our messaging, not messaging, it's, well, yes, messaging in kind of a people term, but also as a business and focus is prepare for the comeback. What happens when cities come out of lockdown? What do we do? What do we need to have in place? And actually, there's a more of an acceleration to being able to prepare for the comeback. And I think that narrative has worked really well. You know, coincidentally, at the end of the quarter, you know, with all of these HR things, you have your NPS surveys, right? And the NPS just went kind of through the roof through that transparency and just having that open book policy. And now what we're really focused on as a team is recruiting, right? We're not putting offers together because we need to have security that we absolutely know what coming out of lockdown means, right? But you can make sure that you have your key hires in place, ready, again, with that open book policy to your hires. Not just this role is on hold, but this is some of the context, this is some of the rationale to get them excited to prepare for the comeback and the big business opportunity in social distancing while commuting, right? What other options are there? So the demand for your type of product is, you know, going to exponentially, we think, grow.
Well, that's nicely leads me on to another question. Sorry, Sammy. Is how is social distancing and this phasing out of lockdown? How do we think that's going to affect recruitment and the workplace?
I think on my half, we are sort of developing a plan, probably over the next week or so, and this has been a plan ever since lockdown has happened, is not necessarily preparing for lockdown to actually happen, but what is going to be the new normal? But then after that is how are we going to open up again? Because if the government then says, now this probably won't align with Alan, but if the UK government does say that we're going to open and businesses are going to slowly open, but we're still going to stay socially distant, then an office which would have been rammed with 2,000 people, that's not going to happen anymore. We're probably going to have an office which is the same size but rammed with 400 people being socially distant, whether that's you, 2 people on a bank of desks of 6, shall I say, retaining that social distance. But I think it's something that I can't really comment on because it is the HR and the people and property function that are dealing with that. But I think it's going to be quite difficult to remain that. But I think what we are trying to do is give people the option of social distancing at work or work from home.
I think interviewing is going to be pretty challenging, right? Because you're embracing all of these social distancing, key trips only, and then you're inviting a huge amount of people to come and interview at your office. So I think interviewing, you're going to have to get good at video interviews. We all have the managers of I want to see this person face to face, etc. But being able to kind of limit, right? Making sure that there's a blended interview panel. It's not just 5 interviews on site, but it's kind of 3 or 4 Zoom interviews and then followed up with, a face-to-face coffee or something. So the recruiting flow is going to fundamentally kind of shift in a good way, I think.
Yeah, certainly.
For us, Daniel, we've been like Tyler company, they've been talking about it over the last couple of weeks. What they're going to do in Belgrade, what they're going to do in London for when looks like Belgrade are going to be coming out of it before we do. Okay. And they've been looking at, I think the home working element is going to be staying for a long time. That is the reality of it. So is it a case of, we have team A, team B going these days, they're going those days. That's what they've been looking at, that whole thing, like Tyler said before, when it's a table of 6, will it just be 2 people that are in there now? That element of it, also looking at how people commute into work. So what is considered safe with social distancing, what isn't. So looking at people's personal situations, but how it's going to impact recruitment, it's going to have a massive impact on it. So we've had it as well with managers that don't want to recruit without meeting people face to face. Where we have done really well is moving to either team or Zoom interviews. Making sure, again, they're structured, they're organized, there's agendas to these meetings, the candidate's fully aware of the process. But I do think the whole video online interviewing is going to continue for some time to come. And where people can, and you've got to be respectful of candidates. Someone's not comfortable getting on the tube or on a train, I'm sorry, but you have to respect that. And if the whole video interview element stays and onboarding like this stays for a while, then I think people's safety is more important.
I also think from a long-term point of view, if you think about if there wasn't any of the things that are happening in the world right now, like hiring people is expensive, right? The time it takes to bring hiring managers out of meetings to be in meetings to do these things, but we never think about the expense in their candidates, the commute time, the meeting you in person, the fact that the face-to-face always runs a bit late and things like that. And whilst I agree there should be some sort of like, these are the offices, this is the environment you're going to be in, I think we should learn a lot from this to go like, videoing should be an option for a lot of the process, because we are spending a lot of our candidates' time, asking them. I went through, most of the interviews I go through are through like 6-7 rounds because of the types of things we interview for. That's a lot of like time over and above just the time I'm sitting within, face to face with someone. And so I think we can learn a lot from this sort of situation of having that empathy back towards your candidates and getting used to the fact that, a video interview is very, on the telephone never feels right, like you can't see people's body language and all the rest of it. But a video interview is okay for a lot of the process.
I actually think it's the new normal. It's a great thing. It's replacing the phone, and I think it's brilliant. But also the whole candidate experience it was important before, but it's even more important now, because as Alan said, it's not just about what we're hiring for now. It's what are things going to look like when we come out of this. The whole thing that we're doing a Hyperoctic really, really well with our brand team is making sure that we have, when certain roles went on hold, which they did, is we've got communication that goes out every couple of weeks to the candidates that we when we're out of this, we know we want to take on, or those that are still going through the process, or applications that we've not looked at. So certain communication goes out to these three groups every couple of weeks. And sometimes it's, hey, this is an update on where we are with the business. Others have just been like funny stuff. We've done other profiles of people that maybe they could be working with or who they'd be working for. The whole communication element and the candidate experience is a hell of a lot more important than it ever was.
Yeah, I think if I could
let you stand out from your competition.
Yeah, I think if I could interject on 2 points. When we spoke about video interviewing is becoming the same norm, what we actually did for the past sort of year is giving people the choice of either video interviewing or face-to-face, because we've got to tap into a lot of the neurodiversity sort of marks as well. You know, people who don't feel comfortable coming in to a face-to-face interview, or they feel that they would underperform being in a face-to-face interview with, you know, the commute before it, and also just having that face-to-face interaction. So we give people an opportunity to either do face-to-face or a video interview. And then it just so happens that we're thrown into lockdown and now we're going to have to video interview. So it's kind of force hiring managers to actually think, you know, we're going to have to interview this way. Sorry, mate, but you kind of forced to, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
but
it does.
To jump on another point about keeping candidates engaged, whether roles go on hold or whatever, I think it is just having that open and honest conversation with your candidates and saying, look, you know, maybe it's a budget review, or maybe we're just reviewing it because of the coronavirus. It's just having that open conversation and keeping your good candidates, your warm candidates who you really want to hire and really want to get into the process, keeping them warm. Just have conversations with them. And do you know what? Don't have conversations about work. Just talk to them like a human being and just say, look, you know, I really want to get to know you. Once everything does drop, you know, we're going to get you into an interview process, you know, guarantee it. If well, sometimes you can't guarantee it, but you could.
Yeah,
definitely.
Agreed.
I think we are unfortunately out of time. However, I did really, because I am so flipping impressed with what you did, Sammy. Can you please share what you guys did a few weeks ago?
Yeah, so obviously there's like the internal community and then your external communities of people you want to engage with. When sort of the first sort of corona hit and everyone was going into lockdown, we were talking about all the conferences and the sort of the social interactions in that way. Like, we have friends that we interact with because we like running, swimming, jogging, whatever it is. But a lot of people, so I work in tech, especially developers, like, get a lot out of going to tech conferences, meeting speakers, getting that sort of content. And it sort of came up as like, well, how can we recreate all this content that's now just been cancelled? Like, it was just every day we'd have a new notification, this conference been cancelled, this one's been cancelled. I personally ran a few and it was just getting a bit scary. And so within a month, we launched a conference called All the Talks. You can actually still find the content. And what it was we brought together all these speakers from all over the world. We live streamed for 24 hours across 3 different live streams. So the same way as if you go to a conference, you can go in and out of rooms and see different sessions. What we did that was a bit different was we actually went across different tracks. So we didn't only focus on one domain. So we did DevOps, security, Java, JavaScript, and containers, allowing for like people that weren't necessarily going to come together in a physical space anyway to be able to interact. So, you know, where there wasn't a DevOps talk, someone might jump into a container talk and realize sort of, oh, this community is actually quite interesting, or for me. And so it was amazing. We brought, it wasn't only internal in the organization, so we had people volunteering to help us host rooms, helping us with green rooms on the back end, helping us look. We did an open call for papers, so every single session was submitted, reviewed, and then accepted or not. And we decided to also make it a charity drive to help with the efforts for COVID-19. So the company I work for, Snyk, decided to cover all the costs of running the conference virtually, and every single ounce of money that came through on sponsorship, as well as the attendee could choose to either buy a ticket that would be a donation ticket or come for free. They're all free. We managed to, we're actually still collecting donations for at the moment, but we broke $100,000 US
Wow.
dollars
That's awesome.
in events that we
Oh, love it.
organized within 4 weeks. So I think like the
Sick.
key learnings there is one, like it's okay to make it scrappy. If you knew how we were sort of scrambling in the back end, sort of like just ship it. And try different things. Don't try like recreate, you know, there was a question about how do you get people to understand your office culture. Like the worst thing you can do is try to recreate something that works so well in person online. So looking at other ways in which your community, whether that be your team, your customers, your clients, whatever it may be, like how do you add value when you're bringing people into a virtual setting. And so, yeah, it was awesome. And now you can find all the content on all the talks.
Sick.
We're gonna have a snoop.
Sick. I love it. I
Um,
love it. I love
yeah.
it.
Would not
love it.
advise anyone do a 24-hour conference though. I'm not going to lie. It was a lot of work. But we also chose all our technology to be accessible. So we didn't pay for a very expensive platform. And we hacked a few things together. So if anyone is thinking of doing it and wants to reach out, at Sammy Hep on Twitter, and I'll gladly talk you through the tech we used, how we did the branding and everything like that, because that was one of the key things we wanted to do with this conference, is sort of show the community in Article how you could do it. So when you look at it, don't think we used a lot of money, because it all went to charity.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think I might take you up on that.
I'm stealing that idea.
Well, look, guys, it's been I've really enjoyed this evening, and certainly an absolute corker for our first one. So so thank you so much for each being involved. Just a bit of background for those who don't realise that Soda Social, this is our networking and community offset of Trust in Soda. We are a digital recruitment agency specialising in data, software engineer, design, product and marketing. And yeah, I mean, you should have seen us all over the socials. We're going to be starting this this series every few weeks. So if there are questions or topics that you'd like covered, please do let us know and get involved. You'll be sent a survey as well. We want this to be as useful for the community. So let's make it work, and let's all learn and thrive together.
Hey, there we go.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Daniel,
Have a wonderful evening. See you later.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks for watching, peoples.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.